bought by the billionaire. But she owned him. Part 4. Chapter 19, The Countdown. The engagement ball was 5 days away. 5 days. 5 days until the masks came off. The world saw a fairy tale, flawless press coverage, a Vogue feature spread, Instagram teasers, and op-eds about the Ice King finally finding his Thor. The most exclusive event of the season was unfolding in Monte Carlo, where royalty, moguls, and media darlings would gather beneath chandeliers to celebrate what looked like a love story. But behind the silk and the sparkle, war was quietly being waged. And neither Mila nor Lucien knew they were planning the other's end. Mila was meticulous. By day, she played the role of the radiant fiancée. She attended tastings, danced through fittings, and posed for press photos with a smile that sparkled as hard as her ring. She took Elodie's corrections with grace. She answered interview questions with poise and practiced affection. But by night, she prepared her strike. In her walk-in closet, hidden in a false bottom trunk beneath layers of designer gowns, the flash drive waited, duplicated, encrypted, and now backed up in the cloud on a secure server tied to an anonymous journalist's inbox. All it would take was one click. She had written the email already. Attached every document. Typed every accusation. Subject line, Ray International New. Here's proof. She hadn't sent it yet. But her finger hovered. Every night, she read her sister's letter again. Don't destroy him. And every morning, she reminded herself, but what if Illyria was wrong? Meanwhile, Lucien moved with a different kind of precision. To Mila, he seemed distracted, absorbed in meetings, suddenly secretive with his schedule. But it wasn't stress. It was strategy. He was planning something. Not for the press. Not for the company. For her. A surprise. A real one. He had instructed a Parisian jeweler to design a custom necklace using a sapphire that matched her eyes. He'd booked a private yacht for the day after the ball, a 72-hour escape from the world, just the two of them. And in the deepest part of him, Lucien was preparing something far more dangerous than any diamond. He was preparing to tell her the truth. About Illyria. About the trial. About what he'd buried. He hadn't made the connection yet. Didn't know that Mila was her sister. But he'd been reviewing old records, pulled back in by the case that never stopped haunting him. And something about the way Mila had reacted, how she'd found that file, how she'd spoken her grief without saying the name, he knew. She had a reason. She had a past. And he was going to find it. But he didn't want to expose her. He wanted to meet her there. At the truth. And maybe, beg for her to stay. The week blurred by. Mila chose a couture gown in Monte Carlo white, with sleeves like wings and a train that trailed behind her like a comet's tail. Lucien reviewed guest lists, security details, seating arrangements, ensuring it would be the most controlled public event of his life. Neither of them spoke about what came after. Neither asked the questions they feared. Do you love me? Do you still mean to hurt me? On the night before the ball, Mila sat alone in the candlelit balcony suite of the Hotel de Paris. Below, the coast shimmered in soft moonlight. Her phone was in her hand. The email still unsent. The truth still buried. But the countdown had begun. Tomorrow, everything would change. Either she would set the world on fire. Or it would burn her first. Chapter 20, The Dress. The Monte Carlo ballroom glittered like the inside of a champagne flute. Hundreds of guests milled beneath vaulted ceilings carved in gold, surrounded by walls of glass that overlooked the Mediterranean. The chandeliers above, Swarovski, imported from Austria, cast a soft glow across crystal goblets, white ponies, and the most powerful people on earth. Cameras flashed. Violins sang. Every conversation was a performance. But when Mila Grayson appeared at the top of the grand staircase, the entire room fell still. She was not just a woman. She was a vision. A threat. A reckoning. The gown was white, not innocent white, but the kind of white that dared you to touch it. Sewn from hand-beaded tulle and raw silk, it shimmered with 1,000 crushed crystals that caught the light and threw it back like starlight off a blade. The neckline plunged like truth too deep to ignore. The sleeves clung to her arms like whispers. The slit up her thigh could cut glass. But the most dangerous thing she wore was the silence in her eyes. Inside the bodice, stitched beneath the lining, the flash drive. Pressed against her heart like a secret waiting to be pulled into the light. She descended the staircase slowly, every step echoing like a countdown. She was late, intentionally. Lucien stood near the marble arch at the center of the ballroom, surrounded by executives, royals, and the unholy glow of a dozen camera flashes. He looked up the second her heel hit the top step. And something shifted in him. Mila met his eyes as she descended. 1 step. 2. 3. She wasn't a bride. She was a storm in heels. She moved like a woman with nothing left to lose, and everything still to give. Whispers raced across the room like wildfire. That's her. The contract girl. She's stunning. He looks like he's in love. Are they real? That dress, God, that dress. She reached the bottom of the staircase and took Lucien's offered hand. He didn't speak. Neither did she. He only stared at her, as if trying to memorize something fleeting and holy before it slipped from his grasp. The string quartet began to play. They moved together onto the floor, and Mila let him lead. Not because she had to, but because it would be the last time she ever did. As they waltzed, her heart pounded in perfect rhythm with the music. 1-2-3. 1-2-3. Each step carried her closer to the moment she'd been preparing for 4 months. The speech was memorized. The flash drive was real. The guests were assembled. The press was recording. She would finish this. Expose everything. Take her sister's ghost out of the shadows and hold it up to the light. But something kept her breath caught. Him. The way Lucien held her. The way he didn't blink. The way his thumb traced her wrist with reverence. It wasn't part of a plan. It was real. And for the first time, Mila questioned if she could go through with it. Because once she opened her mouth, once she shattered the lie, they would never go back. Not to Paris. Not to the rooftop. Not to the kiss where he whispered her name like it was salvation. But truth was truth. And Mila had already walked down the staircase in crystal and secrets. Now, it was time to set it all on fire. Chapter 21, The Reveal. The chandeliers sparkled. The champagne flowed like liquid gold. The music rose into its final sweeping crescendo. Applause erupted as Lucien and Mila completed their waltz, the perfect performance of a perfect couple at the center of a perfect lie. But Mila wasn't listening. She could feel it, the moment pulling at her like a string tied to her spine. Now. Now or never. Lucien leaned close, brushing his lips near her ear. You look Breathtaking, he said, his voice low and warm and impossibly genuine. She closed her eyes. Just for a second. Just long enough to memorize it. Then she pulled away. She didn't smile. Didn't pretend. She stepped off the dance floor, heels clicking against the marble like gunfire. The ballroom dimmed slightly, the music easing into background elegance. Waitstaff circled with trays of flutes and foie gras. The world carried on, unaware that its axis was about to tilt. Mila walked straight to the small stage beside the orchestra. She didn't ask permission. She didn't need it. She took the mic from its stand with one hand. And with the other, reached into the folds of her gown and pulled out a folded sheet of thick ivory paper. The contract. The one that had bought her silence. Her smile. Her role in Lucien's glittering world. She held it up for the room to see. The room quieted. She saw Lucien's head turn. His jaw tighten. But he didn't move. Not yet. "Good evening," Mila said into the mic, her voice clear, echoing off gold-gilded ceilings. "I hope you've all enjoyed your wine and whispers. I know I have." Soft laughter rippled, nervous, confused. "I've been introduced to you as Mila Grayson. Lucien's fiancée. The woman who changed him." She smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "But what I haven't told you is who I was before he bought me." Gasps. Eyes widened. Lucien stepped forward. "Mila," she turned to him, calm. Controlled. Heart racing so fast she thought it might burst. And then she lifted the contract with both hands. And ripped it in half. The sound echoed like a gunshot. "I'm not your fairy tale," she said to the crowd. "I'm not his Cinderella. And this isn't love." A stunned silence fell. Phones were already being lifted. Cameras pointed. "I came into this world not to be saved," she continued, voice steady. "I came to settle a score." Lucien froze. She saw it in his eyes. Not confusion. Recognition. "My name is Mila Grayson," she said, loud now. Clear. "And I am the sister of Ilera Grayson." The woman Ray International destroyed. Gasps. Shouts. Paparazzi surging forward like a tidal wave. Lucien took a single step toward her. She lifted a hand. "Stop." "I know what you did," she said, eyes locked on him. "I know about the trial. The reports. The silence. I know what you let happen." His voice was low. Quiet. But it carried. "I tried to stop it. You didn't try hard enough." The ballroom was chaos now, press shouting questions, guests recording, assistants scrambling. But Mila stayed centered. Grounded. She had done it. She had told the truth. And in the rubble of everything they'd built, Lucien Ray stood alone, silent, exposed, eyes locked on the woman who had just broken the world beneath him. And he still hadn't moved. Not to stop her. Not to defend himself. Not to run. Chapter 22, The Truth. The silence after the explosion was always the loudest. Cameras flashed wildly. Voices collided across the ballroom like waves smashing against marble. Security guards murmured into earpieces. Glass clinked from somewhere in the back. Someone had dropped a champagne flute. The press was already halfway to their breaking news updates, headlines forming mid-breath. But Lucien didn't hear any of it. He heard only one name. Ilera. And he heard it again, from Mila's mouth. I'm Mila Grayson, the sister of Ilera Grayson, the woman your company ruined. The words were no longer just a weapon. They were a funeral bell. And they rang through him like a judgment. He couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. He had known. He had known something haunted her. He had known she had come into his world too easily, too precisely. But he hadn't known this. Not Ilera. Not the girl from the trial. Not the patient who had lingered in his memory for 2 years like a scar under his suit, someone he'd fought to protect behind closed doors, even when it had cost him favor with the board. She had been kind. Soft-spoken. With eyes just like Mila's, though he hadn't made the connection until now. Because Ilera had been dying. And Mila had been alive. Angry. Beautiful and burning. And now she stood in the middle of the most powerful ballroom in Europe, dress shimmering with betrayal, lips parted in defiance, and eyes full of grief. The crowd erupted in fragmented gasps. Ilera, wait, I remember that case. There was a trial, weren't they sued? I thought it was settled privately. She died. He knew, did he know? Lucien stepped forward at last. Slowly. Deliberately. His team was already trying to contain the situation, one assistant whispering to the orchestra to play louder, another shouting something in French to the venue manager, a third swearing into a phone as live feeds from influencers and reporters began flooding the internet. But Lucien ignored all of it. He walked up to Mila as if the entire room had vanished. His voice was low. Raw. Not rehearsed. Why didn't you tell me? She laughed once. Not bitter. Not cruel. Just tired. Because I needed you to love me first. He flinched. And because you wouldn't have let me get close enough otherwise. I would have, he said. God, Mila, I never would've. You signed off on the silence. I didn't sign off on her death. She stared at him. He reached out, almost blindly, as if trying to touch the one thing he could still believe in. But Mila stepped back. You remembered her name, she whispered. But you forgot her humanity. The pain in his chest tightened, sharper than any headline. She wasn't a case file, Lucien. She was a dancer. She hummed in the shower. She made the worst pancakes in the world and she believed in forgiveness even when it broke her. I tried to help her, he said. You tried, Mila replied. But you didn't fight. The words hung between them, louder than any orchestra, more damning than any scandal. The ballroom surged into motion again, press demanding statements, security trying to usher Mila away, investors whispering damage control. Lucien didn't move. He just stood there, staring at the woman he had fallen for, who had come to destroy him, and realized that he had ruined the only thing that still mattered. Her. Mila stepped off the stage. Down the stairs. Away from the spotlight and the fantasy and the lies they'd wrapped themselves in like silk. The crowd parted for her as if they understood what he hadn't. She didn't look back. And Lucien Ray, man of control, architect of empires, unshakable, unstoppable, stood in the ruins of his carefully built world. And said nothing. Because the truth wasn't just out. It had leveled them both. Chapter 23, The Fall. Lucien Ray had always been the last man standing. In boardrooms, in backrooms, in deals forged through blood and contracts, he'd outlasted every competitor. While others cracked under scrutiny, he sharpened. While others ran, he calculated. He was built to endure. But now, in the aftermath of the truth Mila Grayson had set loose, he stood in the shattered center of Monte Carlo's most exclusive ballroom, surrounded by whispers, cameras, power players, and chaos, and for the first time in his life, he broke. Mila was gone. She had descended the stage with grace, like a queen abdicating a poisoned throne. Her dress still glittered, her back still straight, but Lucien had watched her go as if every step she took away from him was a blade to the chest. He didn't follow. Couldn't. Didn't know how. Security didn't dare stop her. PR reps didn't dare approach him. His legal team was waiting behind velvet ropes with furrowed brows and contingency plans, but they looked at him like they were seeing him for the first time, not as a titan, but as a man undone. He didn't speak. Didn't run. Didn't control the narrative. Because for once, the script was gone. And in its place was the woman who had just torn down his empire, with a name. Illyria. Mila's sister. The girl whose case file he'd reviewed. The girl he'd visited once in a hospital room that smelled like lemon bleach and morphine. The girl who looked him in the eyes, pale and shaking, and thanked him for trying when no one else had. He had carried that memory like a scar tucked beneath his tailored suits. But he'd never known she had a sister. Never known she was Mila. And now it was too late. He didn't realize he'd moved until he found himself on his knees. Right there, in the center of the marble ballroom. The cameras caught it. The guests gasped. Some believed it was PR, a performance, a final desperate act. But Lucien didn't see them. Didn't hear them. All he saw was the space where she had stood. His voice cracked as he whispered, "I didn't know." And then, louder, shaking. "I didn't know she was your sister, Mila. I didn't know it was you. I didn't know I was falling for the woman I failed." He pressed a hand to his chest as if trying to anchor himself. "I tried to save Illyria. I fought for her. Quietly. Carefully. Maybe not loud enough. Maybe not hard enough. But I swear to you, I didn't let her die." The silence stretched. He stayed kneeling. Raw. Exposed. Then, more softly, "Just for her, wherever she was, I failed. But I love you." The words didn't echo. They fell. Heavy. Final. Somewhere outside, Mila stood at the edge of the Monte Carlo promenade, barefoot now, holding the contract in one hand and her heels in the other. The wind kissed her hair, and the sea glittered beneath the moon like a secret still waiting to be told. She didn't hear the cameras click. Didn't hear the crowd inside gasp when Lucien dropped to his knees. But somehow, she felt it. The fall. Not his image. Not his career. His heart. And hers broke right along with it. Chapter 24, The Choice. The waves below the Monte Carlo cliffs churned like her thoughts, restless, dark, and wild. Mila stood alone in the cool midnight breeze, the hem of her dress tangled in the sea air, the shredded pieces of the contract still clutched in one hand. She'd left her heels behind on the ballroom stairs. She didn't need them anymore. They had carried her far enough. The flash drive was tucked inside her purse. The files were still intact. The email was still ready. The revenge was still hers to claim. And yet, she hadn't sent it. Not yet. Her fingers hovered over her phone, over the glowing send button. A single tap and it would all come undone. Lucien Ray International, the board, the lies, the money, the legacy. Everything he had built would collapse under the weight of truth. Her sister would be vindicated. Justice would be served. But so would destruction. And now, in the quiet after the storm, Mila realized the most terrifying part wasn't what would happen if she pressed send. It was what would happen if she didn't. Somewhere behind her, the doors to the ballroom had closed. The crowd was scattering. Lucien had fallen to his knees and confessed love into a microphone he didn't know was still on. He hadn't run. He hadn't defended himself. He had broken. For her. And it wasn't a trick. It wasn't a performance. She had seen his eyes, those glass-cut, glacier blue eyes that had always been untouchable, and in that moment, they weren't cold. They were human. She remembered the letter. Illyria's words, burned into her soul. Don't destroy him. He saved me more than once. He looked me in the eye and said he was sorry. He meant it. Mila pressed a trembling hand to her chest. She thought she had come to destroy him. She thought pain was all she had left to offer. But now, she could still expose him. She could still hit send. She could still be the storm. Or she could choose something else. Footsteps behind her. She didn't need to turn to know it was him. Lucien stopped just a few feet away, his voice raw with wind and emotion. I thought you'd be gone. I almost was. He didn't move. I didn't know, he said again, quieter this time. If I had, I would've. I know. Silence. Then she turned to face him. His hair was tousled by the sea breeze, his bow tie undone, his shirt wrinkled from a night that had torn him down to the bone. But his eyes, still locked on hers, still full of that same impossible, undeniable thing. Love. She took a step closer. Just one. Tell me one thing, she said. And tell me like it's not for PR. Not for the board. Not for the cameras. Lucien nodded, lips parted, breath uneven. Would you still have fallen for me, if I'd told you the truth from the start? He didn't even hesitate. I think I fell for you the moment you told me no. Her heart cracked. Not from pain. From truth. The wind picked up. The sound of waves crashing against stone echoed below. Mila looked at her phone again. The screen still glowed with the email. The power still in her hands. The past begging for resolution. She hovered. Then she locked the screen. Not delete. Not send. Just pause. For the first time since this began, she wasn't choosing vengeance. She wasn't choosing silence either. She was choosing hesitation. Because maybe, just maybe, there was something stronger than revenge. Forgiveness. And in that single moment of hesitation, everything changed. Chapter 25, The Ring. The ballroom was nearly empty now. The grandeur of Monte Carlo, once bursting with champagne, scandal, and silk, lay in hush. Waiters collected empty glasses. Security lingered by the exits, trying to look invisible. Only a few clusters of stunned guests remained, too nosy to leave, too polite to stare. And in the center of it all stood Lucien Ray. Unmoving. Still kneeling, tie loose, hair windblown from chasing after the only woman who'd ever cracked him wide open. He had confessed everything. Had knelt not for cameras, not for damage control, but for her. The Ice King, shattered in front of 100 watchful eyes. Mila had left. But now, she returned. Her heels clicked softly across the marble as she stepped back into the room. Heads turned. Phones lifted. The murmurs returned. But Mila didn't care. Her heart beat steady now, like a war drum turned calm. She moved through the remnants of a ballroom that had once crowned a lie, and headed straight for the man who had become her truth. Lucien looked up slowly, as if afraid she might vanish if he blinked. Mila, he breathed. She didn't speak right away. Instead, she reached into her palm, where she had been holding the one thing she never meant to wear again. The ring. She looked at it. Then at him. Then at the crowd. Then back to him. And she did the unthinkable. She slid it back onto her finger herself. A perfect fit. As it always had been. The ballroom gasped. Lucien didn't move. He looked like he was holding his breath, and maybe his entire soul. Then Mila said, calmly, I didn't come to be owned. She held up her hand, the ring gleaming under the broken chandeliers. I came to break you. A pause. Then, a smile. Small. Real. Wicked. But I might stay. She stepped closer, voice lowering to a velvet whisper. If you beg. Lucien blinked. You want me to beg? She shrugged. Groveling is optional. Humility is not. He exhaled, something between a laugh and a sob, and pushed himself up off the ground. Slowly. Like a man rising after the longest fall of his life. He stood before her, wrecked and reverent. No contracts, she said. None. No secrets. He nodded. I'll tell you everything. All of it. Mila tilted her head, heart thudding. Then try again. Lucien took her hand, pulled her gently forward, and dropped his forehead to hers like it was sacred. I don't want to own you, he whispered. I want to earn you. She closed her eyes. Smiled. Better. Cameras snapped. Applause rippled at the edges of the room, slow, confused, but catching fire. They didn't kiss yet. Not there. Not for the room. Because this wasn't for headlines. This was for them. Later that night, in the silence of the Monte Carlo suite, Mila lay curled in Lucien's arms, the contract gone, the secrets out, the war over. The flash drive sat untouched in her purse. The email. Never sent. She had chosen him. And he had chosen her, knowing everything. Love didn't erase the past. It didn't rewrite grief. But it built something new in its ashes. And Mila Grayson, once bought at an auction, once fueled by vengeance, once hollowed by loss, was finally whole. Gemstone bonus epilogue, 6 months later. Paris was quieter in spring. The streets of Montmartre buzzed softly with the scent of warm baguettes, lilacs, and a city that had learned how to survive every kind of storm, just like her. Mila Grayson stood on the balcony of their apartment overlooking the Seine, barefoot, a steaming mug of coffee in hand and her heart, finally, light. The sky was pale rose gold. The morning breeze tangled in her hair. And inside, Lucien Ray was singing softly under his breath in the kitchen. Off key. Badly. She smiled. Some mornings still felt surreal. Not because of the diamond on her finger, he'd given her a new one, smaller this time, no press involved, but because she didn't wake up angry anymore. Didn't ache with a mission. Didn't feel like a woman chasing ghosts. Her sister's photo now lived on their mantle. Framed. Smiling. Dancer's bun and all. Every Sunday, they donated in Ilera's name to a patient care fund Lucien had created, not to cleanse his guilt, but because Mila had demanded the money go where Ilera would have wanted it, toward helping people live, not keeping corporations quiet. Lucian stepped out onto the balcony, shirt half buttoned, 2 coffees in hand. "You're staring at the river again." "I'm reflecting." He raised an eyebrow. "You're brooding." "I'm poetic." He handed her the second mug and kissed her temple. "You're impossible." She sipped. "You love it." "I do." He leaned against the railing, quiet for a moment, then added, "You never sent it, did you?" She didn't ask what he meant. They both knew. "The flash drive," she said. "No, do you ever think about it?" Mila turned her gaze to the horizon. "All the time." "And do you regret it?" A long pause. Then, softly, "No. I regret what happened to her. I regret that justice doesn't always come clean. But, no. I don't regret choosing love when I had the chance." Lucian exhaled, set down his mug, and pulled her into his arms. "You scare me, you know," he whispered. She grinned against his shoulder. "Good." Later that afternoon, they walked hand in hand through the marais, past boutiques and flower stalls. Lucian was in sunglasses to avoid being recognized. He wasn't the Ice King anymore, but tabloids still loved a reformed billionaire. Someone at a cafe whispered, "That's them," but neither of them looked back. Let them whisper. Let them guess. Let the world wonder if she'd forgiven him, or owned him, or maybe, loved him. Because the truth was simpler than any headline. Mila had come to destroy him. But somewhere along the way, she'd saved him instead. And he had let her. Because every broken heart deserves a comeback. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe for more emotional romance every week. Hit like, drop a comment, and ring the bell so you never miss a moment of betrayal, redemption, and powerful love. And don't keep the drama to yourself. Share this story with someone who lives for twists just like you. Thanks for listening, and remember, sometimes the best revenge is becoming unforgettable.